What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Titans Time Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Staggs. Again, as you can see, doing this video solo. Tanner had some other stuff going on. In college, got classes going on, having to take care of some priorities right now. But the Tennessee Titans are now 2-0 in the preseason after beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 34-3. That means in the last two preseason games combined, when you combine the scores, the Titans have scored 57 points and held their opponents to only 6 points. They haven't given up a touchdown in the preseason yet. And yes, it is preseason and they're going against backups. They haven't faced the starters of opposing teams yet. But I still feel like this is pretty promising for what to expect from the Titans defense this year. Again, you have players running around making plays. The communication is a lot better this year. You don't have guys out there looking like they're lost. So, that's one bright spot. Now, again, don't want to overhype it too much because it is preseason and they're not facing starters. Still a bright spot, though. And there were some guys who we got to see make their debut for the Titans this week against the Buccaneers, and mainly that being Elijah Molden and Caleb Farley. Now, just want to hit on Caleb Farley right quick. We've seen him out there for some snaps. I'll be honest, he got beat by Scotty Miller and was able to recover and make sure that Miller was not able to make the catch inbounds, but that also could be attributed to the Buccaneers quarterback at the time. I believe it was Ryan Griffin at the time. I could be wrong on that, or it may have even been Blaine Gabbert. If they would have put that ball probably another yard towards the inside of the field, we may have seen Scotty Miller in the end zone. Just my assessment from that. Farley got beat off the line, and I don't know if he tripped up or what happened, but he was able to recover. Incomplete pass, so it does look a little bit better on his end. And Elijah Molden is definitely, he has to be one of the players of the game for the Titans. For sure the defensive player, if not the player of the game for them. He had a day. We'll dive into that just a little bit later. But going to the offense, you have guys like Mekhi Sargent, who through the first two preseason games has been the leading rusher for the Titans. Had a good touchdown catch against the Buccaneers, and he's really making a case for himself to be, the third running back on this roster. You still have McNichols, who hasn't really done much. You have Brian Hill, who, Tanner and I have been thinking we were kind of high on, but Sargent's really starting to grow on us, and he's coming in, and he's a smaller running back, but he's a powerhouse. He can catch out of the backfield, and you see him doing some Derrick Henry type shit where he's pulling 3, 4, 5, 6 guys down the field for another 5 to 10 yards. So that is something that is very promising and that we need to keep an eye on, because he could be a guy that makes a splash and gets up to that third running back spot. Or if Darrington Evans is still going to be out for a while with injury, because we don't really know exactly what's going on there, we may see Sargent make a push for that number 2 running back spot behind Derrick Henry right now. Then another guy we have to talk about is Mason Kinsey. Kind of like the same situation with Sargent. Mason Kinsey's come out and he has led the Titans in receiving yards the last two preseason games. And he also added his first touchdown in the game against the Buccaneers, which was a beautiful thread-the-needle pass by Barkley. And Barkley is, in this game, he very well could have solidified himself as the QB2 for the Titans. I mean, he come out, was firing on all cylinders. Logan Woodside didn't necessarily have a bad game if you look at the stats. He was 7 of 8 for 64 yards, and he did have a touchdown. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that touchdown was to Dez Fitzpatrick. So, hey, we had a Dez sighting. Still don't know if that's going to be enough to maybe lead him to not being cut and actually making the 53-man roster. But, you know, it is good to finally see his name called and him to get in on the action in this preseason game. But Barkley had 2 touchdown passes, 1 to Sargent and 1 to Mason Kinsey. And like I said, he went 12 of 16 for 115 yards. And Logan Woodside was the one that started the game. But it was pretty obvious early that the Titans weren't moving the ball well with Woodside back there. They throw Barkley in, they start moving the ball better. Things started happening and clicking, so he's definitely made a case for why he deserves to be our QB2, and we'll probably find out more about this in this week's practice and then in the preseason game against the Bears this weekend, which I will be at. So excited to be in Nissan Stadium, even if it is preseason. We're back in there for a game, getting to see the Titans play another team, and even if all we see is the backups, hey, that's important right now because I'm recording this video on Monday. Took a couple days to really think about the game, get my thoughts together, and by tomorrow, the Titans have to be down to 80 players. So, like I said, I'm excited to see this preseason game, even if it's only going to be backups, and see what players can finally finalize why they deserve to be on this 53-man roster. Now, we've talked about some good things, on to some bad. When you get on down into our offensive line depth, again, we have to hope that it never comes to a point in the season where all of our starters are injured and we are down to some of these other combinations of our depth line, because it's not that good. Both quarterbacks were getting a lot of pressure. Barkley was sacked once. Logan Woodside was sacked twice. But just the pressure that was getting back there, and even on run plays, the penetration that the defense was getting, it's just not promising. And we could see a lot of these guys that are playing right now not even be on this final 53-man roster, because the Titans need camp bodies. You don't want to take in these preseason games and put Taylor Lewan, Roger Saffold, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, and all these other guys, all your starters out there to possibly get injured. So you have these camp bodies, and again, there will be some of them that make the team because you still need that depth, but not all of them. And it's very unlikely that we see a combination of these backup guys out there in the regular season. Now, I want to switch back to the defense because, as I mentioned earlier, the defense hasn't allowed a touchdown all preseason. And they didn't even allow the Buccaneers to get inside the 30-yard line on their side of the field. The closest the Buccaneers got was the 31, and then they had to settle for a field goal. So the defense, I mean, guys, it's looking promising. Again, I don't want to get too overexcited about it and come out and say this defense is going to be a top 5 or top 10 defense, because I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. Because, again, we're not facing the best teams have to offer. One thing we are seeing, though, is that we have really good depth this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And even if you look at the offense, our receiving depth is amazing, because you have guys who, if you think that the Titans are going to keep 5 receivers or 6 receivers, there's still 2 or 3 guys right there that you're like, man, he can make this team too, but whose spot would he take? So the depth, we love to see this kind of depth, and it's really a good problem to have, because now when players are being cut, you don't see the Titans sitting there and looking at who other teams cut like, okay, let's go grab this guy, let's grab this guy or this guy. No, now teams are probably looking at who the Titans are going to be cutting like, hey, we need to go grab him if they waive him. We need to go grab this guy. And, you know, there could be some of these guys that the Titans would like to have on their practice squad, but they're not going to be there because they're going to get claimed by another team. But the player of the game on defense, as I mentioned earlier, has to be Elijah Molden. He had 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a pass deflection, and I mean, he really used his head on that pass deflection because the ball hit right off of his helmet, led to a tip drill interception, and I mean, the Titans just, they kept up. They're not just flying around and making plays. They're also keeping the turnover train going from last year. We know last year the Titans were terrible on third down. But the thing that saved them is they were able to create turnovers. And they're showing this in this preseason game that they're doing better on stopping teams on third down. But hey, we're still getting those turnovers as well. Really should have been labeled as probably 3 interceptions for the Titans. There was one play there where they ended up labeling it as a catch fumble recovered by the Titans that was taken back for a touchdown. But I don't know that the guy really ever had possession of the ball. And I think a lot of people think that it should be labeled as an interception. But oh well, they didn't label it as that. So the Titans have 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. But Elijah Molden was flying all over the field. Like I mentioned, the pass deflection even forced a fumble later on in the game. The Buccaneers did recover it. But they are blitzing Molden out of this slot corner position and just moving him all around, and he's so versatile. And a lot of teams are probably going to regret passing on Elijah Molden because he's just finding the ball and making plays. He's getting to whoever has the ball. The sack that he got, he comes in on a blitz, and 2 of the Bucs offensive linemen pull towards him. They see him coming, and he even said he blacked out on this play because he was just doing what he had to do. He said, you know, you got 6'6" and 6'7" coming at me, and I'm 5'10". What else can I do? He just kind of slid to the ground in between them, bear crawled, got up, sacked Kyle Trask, and then turned right around the next play, was able to have some play recognition, seeing that it was going to be a wide receiver screen, didn't hesitate. As soon as he seen what it was going to be, he broke towards the player, the ball got there, and that was one of his tackles for loss. So he's flying around making plays and, you know, making a case for why maybe he should be the one as our starting slot cornerback when the regular season starts up over Chris Jackson. And I know, me personally, I would probably like that more. I would rather see Elijah Molden out there over Chris Jackson. Even though Chris Jackson's been having a pretty good camp, and I don't think he done bad in the preseason game against the Falcons, Elijah Molden, I believe, is going to be our slot cornerback of the future. And I think he needs to get out there now because he's just making plays like crazy. Now, I mentioned the Titans were doing better on third down, and they kept it up again this week. They held the Buccaneers to 2 of 14 on third down. This is so much better, again, even if it is against backups, than what we were seeing last season. I mean, if this would have been against our defense from last season, even the Buccaneers backups probably would have been 13 for 14 and definitely would have gotten in the end zone a couple of times, because more than likely it would have been a touchdown on those third down conversions. So that is a bright spot that we really need to just watch in this last preseason game, and hopefully also see translate over to the regular season whenever all of our starters on defense are playing and going against other team starters. You know, we'll get to see that, and if they can keep this up, and if our starters on defense can do it against the Cardinals starters in week 1. I honestly believe that they can, because just like I said, the communication is so much better. And I think that's what's going to be the biggest difference this year, is that communication. And we have guys who are just, I mean, they're dogs. They're not afraid to get up in receivers and tight ends' faces and just try to disrupt them, even off of the line of scrimmage. They're not just sitting back and being like, okay, I'm going to let you catch this quick slant on me, and then I'm going to come in, kind of break down, and miss my tackle, and you're going to be gone. No, they're right there on these receivers and just disrupting the timing, which can help out tremendously. And we're still seeing the Titans defense get pressure. They had 3 sacks in this game against the Buccaneers. As I mentioned earlier, you have Elijah Molden with a sack, David Long Jr. had a sack, and then John Simon had a sack. So our defense is still generating that pressure. And that's going to be real important for even our starters. I mean, if our backups are doing this, I can't wait to see Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, Harold Landry, Bud Dupree, these guys getting after the quarterback and just wreaking havoc in opposing teams' backfields. So yeah, guys, this is just, my recap of the game, things that I've seen, players that stood out to me. Oh, I almost forgot, and I don't know how I could forget Sam Ficken. I mean, come on, guys. He hit a 58-yarder. He was good on all of his field goal attempts, which I believe was 2 for 2, and he was good on all of his extra points. It looks like he's going to be our kicker going forward, because as of today, Tucker McCann did get waived by the Titans. Don't know if it's just because of, I'm going to say it's a combination of the injury that he had against the Falcons and the Titans feeling confident in Ficken going forward. Hopefully Ficken can keep that up. Vrabel even come out and said that he believes that Ficken has gotten stronger the longer he's been in camp and the more that his confidence has grown. The 58-yard kick that he made, he had plenty of leg. He probably could have hit from 60. So hopefully this year our kicking woes are over, and Sam Kickin' Ficken is going to be the answer to all of that. But yeah, guys, like I said, that's pretty much my recap of this game. Players that stood out to me, who I think made the biggest impact. Go down in the comments and let me know who you thought was the player of the game for the Titans. Give me an offensive and a defensive player. And guys that, especially out of the receivers, that you think are going to make this team. I want you to tell me who you think the top 6 receivers, or the 6 receivers you think are going to make this team are. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast, go down, make sure that little red subscribe button, turn it gray, turn on the post notifications so you never miss when we upload a video. Do us a favor, share the video with your family, friends, other football fans, especially Titans fans. We love talking football with all kinds of fans, but we want to grow, our friendships with more Titans fans and interact with more Titans fans. Because, guys, when it's both me and Tanner here, there's times where we agree on a lot of things, but even if we don't, we know where each other stands. We want to get y'all's opinions because they're probably different than ours, and it can give us a different view on things. So, like I said, go down in the comments and just leave us what your thoughts are from the game. Also, make sure to go follow us on social media. Twitter is Titans_time. Our Instagram is titanstimepodcast. And you can also find us on Facebook, and it's Titans Time on there. And if you want to support the podcast another way, we do have merch. All you have to do is go to titans-time.myshopify. That's shopify.com/collections. We have everything from hats, t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, backpacks, shorts. Guys, go check it out, and we appreciate all the support. We love all of our subscribers. We love the interaction that you always give us. So, yeah, that's all I have. This has been Titans Time, and as always, tighten up.